Welcome to this new special on Al Jazeera. I'm Ayman Muhyiddin, live in the Gaza Strip, where it's been shattered after Israel's 3-week-long war. But amid the chaos and confusion, the people here are starting to show signs of resilience as they begin to repair their lives, damaged homes, bombed out businesses and schools. But Gaza is still a territory under siege, bereaved and bereft of international support. The West and others blame Hamas, all while the people here continue to suffer. In the next 60 minutes, we will be bringing you exclusive stories from our correspondents inside Gaza. From here in the northern town of Atatra, we will look at the ways people are trying to rebuild their lives. Todd bears in the southern city of Khan Yunis, where mass destruction and allegations of illegal weaponry are legacies of this war. In Gaza City, Shireen Tadros, who's been covering the war from the first day, is live at a makeshift UN shelter where hundreds of people are about to be moved on yet again. And Mike Hanna's also there. He's been talking to those who feel let down by the international community and claim their problems are as much political as they are humanitarian. We begin with his report.
The Palestinian flag still in evidence despite the massive onslaught. A war, says Israel, intended to end the activities of Hamas, a movement that refuses to recognize a self-defined Jewish state, and one that formed the majority in a democratically elected Palestinian government less than 3 short years ago. Standing outside what is still called the Arafat compound, a senior police officer. Unwilling to give his real name, he asked to be called Abu Hatel, and takes us inside the main headquarters of the security services in Gaza. Work is well underway in attempting to restore order to the shattered buildings. And with the glass crunching under feet, we walk along the road to the police training division. On one side, a parade ground scarred by a massive crater. This is where the first rocket struck without warning 2 days after Christmas. There were 40 young trainees lined up here. All were killed. Some might have supported Hamas, some its political rival Fatah, and some may have had no political allegiance at all. The one thing certain is that they wanted to be policemen.
This was not a training area for Hamas alone. It was for all who say I am Palestinian. It does not belong to Hamas. Anyone who is Palestinian had the right to train here. This is a police compound.
International experts confirm the rockets were fired from attack helicopters, and Abu Hatel is as certain of his opinion.
Israel made a mistake here if they thought Hamas would disappear or be pushed away. No. Now we are truly united.
And as those in Gaza again take control of their streets, it appears that returning to what passes for normal is in itself an act of defiance. The power lines are being repaired as they've been so many times before. The faithful whose mosques have been destroyed pray in the open air. And there is newly harvested produce in the Beit Lahiya market, the aroma of the spices masking the lingering smell of burnt flesh and cordite, the smell of war. The shoppers ignore the ruined buildings behind them, and the crater of the bomb that obliterated half the market area and killed a number of those who were selling or shopping here.
This war was not just against Hamas. It was one prepared long ago before any truce. They just want to force Palestinians to their knees because they see us all as the enemy. This war has made all Palestinians more united, and you know Hamas has gained popular support. There were many like me who opposed Hamas in the past, but now may be prepared to support it.
And in the wasteland created by Israeli troops and their tanks, even the most moderate are reconsidering their position. Shoki Ramos Salam retired as a teacher 2 years ago. He saved for 15 years to build his dream house, shared by his wife and children. This is the way the Israeli forces left it. This, he says, the death of the concept of land for peace, of a deal in which Palestinians accept a state in the West Bank and Gaza with Israel as a friendly neighbor.
As Palestinians, we accepted to live in Gaza and with the West Bank without occupation. And this is a strong decision. This is a strong decision to forget your land. But the Israelis do not the Israelis do not accept this. Even to give them more than 80% of our land, they can't accept this. They speak about terrorism, and I want anyone in the world to tell me if there were any terrorism like this.
Throughout their history, the Palestinians of Gaza seem to have suffered it all. They've experienced invasion, occupation, an ongoing blockade by the Israelis. They've seen what amounts to a civil war. Yet never, never has so much wanton destruction been caused. And yet, as great the destruction, as strong the swelling desire to recreate. Amidst the rubble, the people of Gaza are beginning, brick by brick, to rebuild the dream of a unified Palestinian state. Mike Hanna, Al Jazeera, Gaza.
Well, it's been nearly a week since the end of the war, and yet the death toll from that conflict still continues to rise as people recover bodies from the rubble till this very day. Palestinian health officials say over 1,300 people have died to date. Among them, 410 children. Over than 5,000 people were injured during that offensive. More than a third of them are children, and half of all those injuries are said to be severe, with the risk of permanent disability. And a look now at a movement of people. At least 100,000 Gazans were made homeless by the war. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency emergency shelters are accommodating nearly 50,000 of them, many with nowhere to go home to once they leave. And what will they find when they return? 1 million people spent much of the fighting without electricity, and according to the UN, some 400,000 still do not have access to running water. But before December 27th, there were 221 UN schools operating, providing education and social development to much-needed children all across the Gaza Strip. 53 of them have been attacked during the fighting, and over the past month, many of them have been completely destroyed. Shireen Tadros joins me now from a school turned into a UN shelter in Gaza City.
Thank you, Ayman. Well, the people you see around me really are the ones who bore the brunt of this war, and they're continuing to pay its price. We're here at one of the United Nations schools that have been turned into a makeshift center, and we've been speaking to people about their experiences. A lot of them have come from all over the Strip, the north and the northeastern parts, especially where the heaviest of the fighting and the clashes took place. Of course, one neighborhood that was very much affected is the Zaytun area, just northeast of Gaza City. That's where the extended Sammouni family lived, and where their stories are only now emerging of those days when the Israeli troops moved into their homes and their area. Now, one particular woman I spoke to, Noel El Sammouni, had an incredible story. Here it is. Her escape was miraculous, but she describes her survival as a tragedy. 37-year-old Nawar Sammouni gave birth as Israeli troops shelled around her home and an airstrike hit the side of it. As she brought life into the world, she could hear screams of death. This is the first time Noel speaks out about her story, holding tight the other daughter she almost lost.
My mother delivered my baby, and she put her on the floor. She came 3 weeks early. There was fluid coming out of her nose. But the placenta wouldn't come out. It took another 2 hours. I was so scared. We ran from the house, but we hadn't even got to the end of the road when another missile hit our home, and we realized my daughter, this one here, was still inside. I wasn't well, I wasn't thinking. Her father went back and found her standing on the dresser, and she was crying, "Daddy, Daddy." He grabbed her and ran, and then another missile hit the house.